Candance Owens is an author and commentator and a smart person, and she joins us tonight. So why can't Hispanic men just accept that it was QAnon that totaled Minneapolis? Like, it's not hard, just believe.
Can I just take a moment to just thank our lucky stars that we have the New York Times available to think for Hispanic people and to think for Black Americans and to do the thinking because, I mean, God forbid we have these Hispanic men and women walking around trying to think for themselves. Fortunately, we have these pedantic articles that look at them and say, let me explain to you what happened. And by the way, Tucker, don't you dare believe your lying eyes. I know all summer we saw churches being burned to the ground in Washington, D.C. We saw Target being rioted, looted, cars smashing into retail shops, taking things. We saw Richard Brooks attack a police officer, and in response, they burned a Wendy's to the ground in Atlanta. Remember that story? We saw this all summer for weeks on end and respond to George Floyd protests. And they're assuming, I guess we're supposed to pretend it never happened, Tucker. That it never happened. And this is just a big, nasty QAnon conservative conspiracy theory that Hispanic men are falling for because they're not smart enough, Tucker, to think for themselves.
That is so insightful. It actually hadn't even occurred to me just how patronizing, I mean, when you lie that obviously and expect people to believe you, what you're really saying is, I think you're stupid.
Yeah, and this is what we talk about all the time, you know, me and the Blexit Foundation, is just the bigotry of low expectations. People don't even realize their implicit biases. They don't even realize what they're saying when we write these things, when they say, well, Black people just don't understand. Hispanic men just don't understand. So listen to me, a latte-sipping reporter in New York who's going to explain to you what is reality, even though it is the exact opposite of the reality that they are attempting to portray in their worlds. It is insulting. And by the way, I like this kind of writing, Tucker, because this is the reason that Hispanics are fleeing the Democrat Party, because they are tired of this. They're tired of being treated like toddlers who can't think for themselves. And they're most especially tired of being flat out lied to in the way that this writer has lied to America about what actually took place in this, not just this country, but in other countries all summer because of the George Floyd riots.
So I'm assuming a lot of these voters, at least the ones that we've been talking about, are mostly lower income, some of the lowest income people in the country, actually. I'm assuming they're not like daily New York Times readers. They have come to these conclusions just by watching. As you said, don't believe your lying eyes. They don't have to like consume a lot of this crap. They're not watching MSNBC, and they're like, oh, yeah, there's a deep state. Oh, of course, BLM is wrecking our cities. It's just like a kind of pure empiricism.
Right. And here's another thing is that Hispanic values, they just don't align with the Democrat Party. You know, your average Hispanic person, first and foremost, if they're coming from a place like Cuba or Venezuela, they know what socialism is. You're not going to make socialism sound pretty or put a bow on socialism for a person fleeing those countries. And then in other regards, they're deeply religious, deeply faithful. So this idea that we should be having abortion, you know, at 9 months in the womb, it's not going to stick with them. They have better values and principles than most of the Democrats. And the politicians are simply not fooling them because you know what, Tucker? Hispanic men and women are bright enough to figure out what's going on in this country.
Of course. They see the snarling attacks on masculinity and they think, I'm not for that. I mean, who is for that anyway? It's so freaking nuts. Candance Owens, it is so...
All right. So you heard that, right? So she recently went on the New York Times to say that Blacks and Hispanics can't think for themselves. And Candance is really the last person to be talking about not thinking for herself. What she's doing is just thinking like a white supremacist. How is she thinking for herself? She's not. Okay? She's not. She's thinking like a white supremacist. And this is the reason why they like to put Candance in front of everybody, because it's a black face saying the same thing that a white supremacist would say. But y'all never let Candance off the hook. When she posted a picture of her newborn, the white supremacists, the very people that she think like, attacked her baby out on Twitter. You could probably still go out and find the tweets. They insulted her baby for being biracial. Candance said absolutely nothing. Now, we know damn well if it was a group of black people that said something about her baby, she would have been all over it. We know it. She said nothing. The only thing she did was take the picture down, but she didn't fight them. She didn't tell them to leave her baby alone. She said nothing. So when she comes out with the insults, We got to be ready to push back hard and be reminding her constantly of what was said about her baby, and she did nothing to defend her baby. Nothing. So somebody like that does not get to say anything about us not thinking for ourselves. The way I see it, if we weren't thinking for ourselves, we would be out in huge numbers getting the shot. After all, haven't they been pushing the propaganda towards the Black community since December when they came out with the shot? And we're still not biting. So obviously we're thinking for ourselves. And ever since they keep claiming we are disproportionate, haven't we been demanding the raw numbers? Show us the numbers. Have they showed us a number? No. See, your word is no good. It's no good over here. It's no good. You saying it and not showing the actual data, no good. We're not falling for that. Okay. So obviously we are. We're thinking enough for ourselves to irritate the hell out of them. And they know they can't influence us to go out there and get that shot. And politically, Black people have changed. We have. You know, many may still be voting Democratic, but many have changed. Many that would have faithfully went out and voted are now saying, no, you don't do nothing for me. You can't have my vote. You know, more and more of us are getting on board with that. It's not like years ago where you would have two candidates. We would just go with the Democratic candidate and that was it. That's not so anymore. It's not, you know. And I think what ruined Donald Trump from winning, to be honest with you, was COVID. COVID ruined it. And he was stingy on, you know, I think if he would have done the stimulus prior to, not a $600 stimulus, that was absolutely ridiculous. But if he would have done a stimulus prior to winning, you know, prior to the election, and he didn't goof up so badly with COVID, he would have won. He would have won. But he dropped the ball badly on those two things. And then, like I said, when they finally gave a stimulus $600 after waiting months and months and months, that was just an insult. So, you know, Donald Trump was not cheated out of an election. Donald Trump sucked as a president, and y'all just don't want to admit that. He sucked as a president. And I'm not saying Joe Biden's would be better. Joe Biden got a Jim Crow that's why he's called Jim Crow Joe. You know, remember, he was all buddy with the Dixiecrats when he was a senator. Never forget that. Nobody changes that much. Joe Biden didn't change that much. And we know it. Many of us know it. But Candace, go home and take care of your baby. Go home and be a mother. And all of this stuff you're doing, I just laugh at you because you're not an expert in nothing. She's a college dropout. Okay? And she talks about racism don't exist, but she sued years ago for racism. And who picked her as an expert? White supremacists? No one in the Black community picked this woman as no expert. She's not an expert. The only reason why you got her propped up is because she sounds like white folks. That's the only reason why you got her propped up. And the Black community is not embracing her. At the end of the day, we don't embrace Candace Owens. Y'all do. That's why it is white people that keep propping her up all over the place. The Black community is not demanding to see her. That says it all. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. And you notice how she'll prop up anybody except for Black people. Well done, Candace. If you haven't done nothing else, advocating for white supremacy is top notch for you. Peace, family.